We are live. Oh my goodness and my gracious and all of the above. It is January 3 of 2003, episode 53. You got me. It's about as all the rhymes I can come up with right now, but hee hee hee. Wow. Made it through an entire year. Still here. Welcome, welcome. If you're watching this live on YouTube, thank you for your support. And holy cow, yes, here we are, whole new year. Even though all the times that I've talked about how we don't need a year to start over, it just seems like, that's what the whole world likes to do. And if you're, it's all right, they can't see that, but I'm glad you're alive. I'm doing well. For those of you on YouTube, if this is your first time watching the recording or joining us, please do me all the YouTube favors. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. I also have a website, which is thetswb.com. That is thetallskinnywhiteboy.com. Yes, that is I, and I am he, and he is I, and all the above. And I do offer a free 30-minute consult. If there's anything that you would like to ask me about or see if we're a fit, that is your time. 30 minutes of my time for you. And if we're not a fit, I will also let you know, and I will direct you to any of these amazing people that have been on here and people that I know in the industry, because we want to make sure that you get the help you're looking for. But enough about me and all the above. Happy New Year, everybody. Yay! And with that, I'm going to jump right in because I got a feeling there's going to be a lot of squirrels in this one. As we do. I didn't research it, but I could have, should have, would have, now that I just thought of it. New Year's resolutions have been around for, I'm just going to say, quite a while. And it's almost become a tongue-in-cheek type of knowledge of, so, which resolution did you make that you're not going to hold up? It's kind of like I've mentioned in the last couple of triple T's. Oh, thank you. Holly looked it up because she is amazing at that. The very first New Year's resolutions happened over 4,000 years ago. First recorded people to celebrate a new year were the ancient Babylonians. And if you think about that, when we look at our calendar and we're celebrating 2023 and the Babylonians are like, old school. It's 623. But as I've mentioned in a number of the triple T's before, resolutions, if not made properly or for the correct reasons, have a short-lived lifespan, unfortunately. And a vast majority of them, we got all sorts of information coming in. In 1740, the English clergyman John Wesley, founder of the Methodism, created the Covenant Renewal Service. And Lenora put in, according to some quick Google research, 9% successfully keep their New Year's resolutions. Woo, I didn't know it was that low. 23% of people quit by the end of the first week, 64 after the first month, according to a study with Australian and UK citizens, and 81% before the end of the second year. And so you hear numbers like that, 9%. Those of us in the industry see this a lot. It's also why we tell people, don't wait until January 1st to fix your life. Try crazy things like, I don't know, Tuesday, March, second week, whatever it takes. But the challenge is to figure out how to do it properly. And more often than not, it's going to take a combination of things. One, figuring out what blocks have held you back from accomplishing this before. Finding somebody who can drill down to your values and criteria deep enough to figure out what is going to motivate you to keep going past that first week or second week or second month. And finally, how many accountability people do you need in your tribe to remind you of what your goals were and why you made the goals and why it's important to you? Change is not easy, especially when we're dealing with amazing fun stuff like our subconscious and our conscious and all those things that want to make sure that we stay the same. That's safe. Not only safe, but we don't have to rebuild our identity that way. And so many people are afraid of what they might become if their identity changes. Well, this is the way I've always been. Just ask my family and my friends. What would they say if I became something else? Well, if you're going to rely on their approval, it might be even more challenging. Sometimes making the big changes that are required is scary because we don't know who is going to stick around and support us from our tribe. And that's okay. And sometimes it can be lonely. I know. Sometimes you change enough that enough of your tribe disappears that you don't have much of a tribe left. I'm here to tell you the cool part about that. You now get to pick a new tribe. And I'm going to caution you to take your time. Decide where new people in your tribe belong. Using one of my favorite analogies is you are the king or queen of your kingdom. And it doesn't matter if they're blood family, if they've known you since you took your first breath, if they've been around you your entire life, it's up to you to decide where they are allowed to be in your kingdom. If they're allowed to be on the kingdom property at all. Are they allowed inside the city walls? Are they allowed in the city at all? Are they allowed into the castle? Are they allowed into the great room? Are they allowed to sit at the head table? You get to decide, and you have to decide, especially when you're undergoing change. I used this analogy last week with one of my clients is, you know how when you're deciding you're going to run a 5K out of the blue, you've never done it before? Strangers will support you. You can do this. Oh, it's cool. I've done it before. It's awesome. You get these shoes and everything. And what do your friends and family say? You're what? Well, why would you want to do that? That's stupid. I would never do that. I would never do that. Well, we're not talking about you, brother. And then you see when they video, do live footage of people running these marathons and all this stuff. Hundreds and hundreds of people who are not runners lined up along the pathway of the course. And what are they doing? Cheering on everybody, especially their favorite person. Except when we're talking about change like this, your friends and family will cheer on all the other runners, but will be the ones that are throwing sticks and bricks at your feet as you're running by. That's a long way. Don't you have other things you could do? I don't know. This change. You're who do you think you're becoming? What makes you think that you can be better than us? Who do you think you are? It's a good reason to do it. Find out who you are. And the sad part is, what do they say when you cross the finish line? Yay! I knew you could do it all along. I've been your biggest supporter, except for that log that I threw at you, and sorry about that brick that hit you in the head. But I was just trying to help you. I was just trying to protect you from failing. I was just trying to make sure that you didn't become the person I wish I could be. So in this time of New Year's resolutions, I think it's important for every one of us to push ourselves to become better than the person we were yesterday, better than the person we were last week, last month, last year. And it's okay to scare the feces out of ourselves every now and then by trying something different. There was a time when we didn't know how to use a spoon. Just saying. There was a time when we couldn't stand up and walk 3 feet without falling on our tuchus. It's amazing how family and friends at that time celebrated the fact that we took 7 steps simultaneously. And now that we know how to walk, use a spoon, wipe our own behind, pay our bills, now they want to make sure that we don't accomplish anything more. And you're going to have clients that are dealing with this more than ever. And now that the holidays are over, notice anybody around you dealing with holiday fatigue? I went into town yesterday. Wasn't that an adventure? Whee! The stores were packed with grumpy people. Oh, holiday niceness was gone. In fact, one of the ladies I've gotten to know at one of the grocery stores, one of the favorite people you want to know because she makes all the samples that you can try. Especially when you're a foodie. I've never thought of that recipe. That'd be a good. I could probably do that job. I couldn't support myself, but I could do that. I would just randomly pick out recipes and feed people. Well, when I mentioned that, yes, it was crazy busy and people were grumpy, well, she validated. Because one guy, she was making a certain type of steak. Oh, yeah, steak will definitely bring the line. If you're vegan, I'm sorry, this is not about it, just it was being served and people were lining up. And this one guy took his sample, ate it without moving, and said, "Can I have another one?" And because she's a nice lady, she was like, yeah. And the line is starting to pile up. She hands it to him. He eats it without moving. He goes, "Can I have another one?" It's like, yeah, after I, tend to the 6 people standing in line behind you. He goes, "Whatever," said the B word. "Oh, yeah," and stomps off. And she was like, "Well, thank you. I've been called worse," and said even the people in line are like, so yeah. Now, do we know what he's been going through the holidays? No. And the cool part that I've noticed, people who have done self work will think of it that way. Those of us who help others get through their own personal hell will look at somebody like that and go, wow, there's a story there. People who are in the same hell and haven't done any work will eat that poison all day long. And we're the lucky ones that get to see that, recognize it, and go on to help people. We're 20 minutes into Triple T 53, all sorts of fun, heavy stuff. Welcome to 23. But I wanted to point these things out because we are the warriors. We are the people of change. We are the ones that see people, and we're going to be the ones that are going to hear the new resolutions. And I want to make sure that we are prepared to ask the questions that other people don't, to help these people find the tools that they never would have had they not come across people like us. And if you're watching this recording and you haven't met people like us, reach out. You can change. Like Jim Rohn said, if you don't like where you are, move. You're not a tree. Is it scary? It can be, very much so. I know. I've lived on many parts of the planet. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, I can't believe I just was like, you know what, I should go to Europe for a year. And 2 months later, I was there. But that was back when I was young, dumb, and bulletproof. I wasn't married and wasn't married to a mortgage either, so it made it easy. But with all that we've been through since 2020, yeah, I saw a few inhales there, like, oh yeah, that year of vision. The fact that you can hear my voice means we've all survived this far. And if we can make it through that feces display, we can make it through a lot more. And it should empower us to decide, what do I want to be like in 24? You got 362 days left, which I'm going to probably sound like my father now, but them days are going by a lot quicker than they used to. I was laughing with my wife the other day. The song 1999 came on by Prince. Every time I hear that song, I have a flashback to, I think I was in 8th grade, Central Middle School, in the cafeteria area, which was just outside of the swimming pool, for a school dance. That was the night that they were going to reveal who shot JR. The DJ played Prince's 1999, and I remember hearing the lyrics of that because I'm into music and I'm into lyrics, and we're going to party like it's 1999. I'm thinking, that is like forever away. Oh my gosh, I'm going to live 3 lifetimes before that happens. And now it's 24 years ago. The world was going to come to an end at least twice since then. And we've survived. And knowing that, yes, 2024 is going to be here quicker than we think. So, what big, awesome, atrocious goals can we set for ourselves? How can we reverse engineer the ability to achieve them? Who can we find and add to our tribe to make sure that we accomplish them? Why is it important to us to accomplish them? How will we know when we achieve it? How will we know when we're on track? What will it do for us when we accomplish that? What will it do for others when we accomplish that? Why is it important to understand who else is going to be affected? What limiting beliefs might pop up that we're going to have to deal with, and how are we going to deal with them? Who's going to be standing by the side of the road tossing bricks and logs at us? Why is that important? The main reason that's important, especially I tell my clients when dealing with stuff like this, when you understand that a scorpion does what a scorpion does, it's much easier for a boxer, a pro boxer, or an MMA fighter to get into a ring and take a hit than it is for somebody walking around out in public and have a surprise hit them, even if they're a pro boxer. And if you can let your mind know, chances are pretty good that Uncle Bill's going to give me a hard time and try and chunk logs and bricks at me because he still, he lived in his mother's basement till he was 45. It'll be a lot easier to take him giving you a hard time. It'll also be a lot easier to realize that he barely deserves to be on the kingdom grounds, but because he's blood relation, we let him walk across the edge of the property every now and then. But he ain't coming in the castle and he ain't getting inside the city walls because the last time it was such a feces performance that we had to clog up the sewer system just to get it all cleaned up. And I ran across a interesting story, put some things in perspective for you guys. Inside history, for a small amount of perspective at this moment, imagine you were born in 1900, which is about the time that my grandfather was born, my father's father. When you're 14, World War I starts and ends on your 18th birthday with 22 million people killed. Later in the year, a Spanish flu epidemic hits the planet and runs until you are 20. 50 million people die from it in those 2 years. Yes, 50 million. When you're 29, the Great Depression begins. Unemployment hits 25%. Global GDP drops 27%. That runs until you're 33. The country nearly collapses along with the world economy. When you turn 39, World War II starts. You aren't even over the hill yet. When you're 41, the United States is fully pulled into World War II. Between your 39th and 45th birthday, 75 million people perish in the war, and the Holocaust kills 12 million. At 52, the Korean War starts, and 5 million perish. At 64, the Vietnam War begins, and it doesn't end for many years. 4 million people die in that conflict. Approaching your 62nd birthday, you have the Cuban Missile Crisis, the tipping point in the Cold War. Life on our planet, as we know it, could well have ended. Great leaders prevented that from happening. As you turn 75, the Vietnam War finally ends. Think of everyone on the planet born in 1900. How do you survive all of that? Kid in 1985 think their 85-year-old grandparents understood how hard, or didn't think their 85-year-old grandparents understood how hard school was. Yet those grandparents and now great-grandparents survived through everything listed above. Perspective is an amazing art. As 2022 ends, let's try and keep things in perspective. Let's be smart, help each other out, and we will get through all of this. In the history of the world, there has never been a storm that lasted. This too shall pass. We've made it through 2020. We've made it through 2023. 3 days. Yay! $362 left. Who do you want to be in 23? So that you can be more in 24. I've been going on for 33 minutes on third, on 23, on my 53rd episode of Triple T, which I wasn't sure if I would get 3 out. I've done 50 more than that. Any ahas, epiphanies, insights you guys would like to share with people that are watching this live and on the recording? Come on.
I love that you always encourage people to move forward, not in a push, but in a support of people wanting to move forward in whatever aspect that they want.
So now I'll ask you.
I got a lot of burps going on over here, so
It's okay. People process information different ways. Some laugh, some cry, some burp, some fart. Glad we're not farting.
thankfully it's just the top half.
Yes. So how are you going to use that in 23?
How am I going to use it? Starting to use it more, especially when you talk about boundaries and knowing who can come in the castle walls and who can sit at the great table and who needs to stay outside the walls, and helping to, and that helps, I think, at least for me, to remind myself of what foxes to give out and what foxes not to give out. And to explore the masks and the identities that one wants to develop in the way that's best for them. That's what I like about it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
I'll jump in for a second. I feel like probably everybody else feels this way too, but I feel like my mind's been going boom, 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 like a million different tangents I could go down, a million different downloads. But the one that keeps coming up over and over and over again for me is just this idea of choice. Kind of goes back a little bit more, but so I'm actually speaking in church on choice in a couple weeks. But it's funny how I can write something down to say to a congregation and not realize it's for me. And then I hear almost the exact same words come out of your mouth and boom, download. But it's just this concept of you can't. So if you take away somebody's choice to protect them from failure, by default, you are also protecting them from success. And how many times have we protected ourselves from success?
Sadly, I see it all the time. And the fact that we are hardwired to look for the negative, because back in the day of the caveman, it was much more important to make sure that you mistook a branch for a snake than to mistake a snake for a branch. And so our minds, understanding that our minds are naturally hardwired for worst case scenario, we can take that knowledge and use it as such. Yes, I acknowledge that could happen. That could be worst case scenario. But in the quantum of possibilities, this could happen just as easily. And those of us in here know that where attention goes, energy flows. Yes, Lynn.
I like the one where they say, especially, we're wired for the negative. We didn't come out of the cave going, gee, what a beautiful day. We came out of the cave going, okay, what can kill me? And I think that really helps with perspective, because it lets you, a lot of the time you'll hear, oh, I'm so negative. And you're like, okay, well, you're designed that way. So how else can there's two sides to everything. So notice that, but also notice this as well. And it's, for me, I've been able to notice them, but they were kind of like this. And now they're starting to shift more so that I'm focusing more on possibilities and things that are potential. And today was like the very first, I feel like the very first day where I actually felt like when I was using my time, I was noticing that it was filling time cards. I wasn't technically getting paid by the hour at that time, but I was like, no, this is what I need to be doing. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. And that was a number of years coming. So that was a really, really exciting thing for 23 so far.
Yay!
Yes.
I was going to follow that up real fast too. Sorry, it just popped up. But how many times too, when time has passed, every time I look back at the worst case scenario that could have come up, and it always was the best case scenario once I could see it in context, if it actually happened.
So it's also why I like that quote of, I wasted so much energy worrying about 99 things that could go wrong. Or no, I wasted so much energy worrying about 100 things that could go wrong 99 of which never did. And the one thing that did go wrong wasn't that big of a deal anyway.
I always say 2020. I usually, especially when Holly's like, when I look behind me, it worked out. And I always say, like, hindsight, she's such a bitch, like it's always 2020.
Yep. But when you think of what could you have done with all that energy that you wasted worrying about the 100 things,
Completely.
99 of which never even happened.
Completely.
And the funny part is, when I ask people, how did you deal with the one that happened? Was it even on your list? It wasn't even on my list. Well, how'd you deal with it? Easily. Just dealt with it. Wait a minute, you mean you hadn't even thought of how that could happen? You were worried about all these other ways that it could happen? This wasn't on your radar? And then it showed up and you still survived? Can you imagine what 2023 would be like if you just went about going, I'm just going to go for good stuff? Because I've learned that when the bad stuff shows up, it doesn't matter if I worried about it or not, I'll survive it anyway. And I'm going to say it again. If you spent all your time thinking about how everything can go right, knowing that if or when, for those pessimists out there, when it goes wrong, okay, fine, something will probably go wrong. But if you spent all your energy investing in how it will go right and the thing that goes wrong does show up, you're going to deal with it anyway. And you're going to make it just like you have all the other things. The difference will be you will have much better energy reserves. And that's not just me talking foo-foo and trying to blow sunshine up your dress. It's been proven. The people that are happy in all of those things, the reason people are so jealous of them is because they skate through the feces storm much easier than the Eeyores of life. Who else has seen this happen? Who do you, how, somewhere in your life you've met somebody that is just happy. They're positive. Their car breaks down, they're like, well, guess it's time for another one. I've gotten 300,000 good miles out of this one. You what? How could you drive it for 300,000 miles? It could have broke down at 50. You're right, it could have. So, what can you do different this year? Take a good hard look at 2022. do a fair amount of reflection into who you were, what you went through, what you survived, and send gratitude back to that year of yourself for all the things you did right. You're here. You made it to 23. Must have done something right.
Especially in today's society, TJ, so many people didn't make it.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I continue to like to ask myself and I like to ask others, when you get in a position, when was the time that you thought you couldn't do something and you ended up being very successful at it? It might not have been pretty getting there, but you were successful. So if you were able to accomplish that, what else can you do that you think you can't do?
Exactly. That's why I like to jokingly point out to people there was a time when you couldn't run a spoon. There was a time you had to wear diapers because you hadn't figured out yet how to properly operate a toilet and finish up properly with the paperwork. And so, if you're not growing, you're dying. That's another very, very common quote in personal development. I still know some people who are so content with the fact that they have they plateaued at 20. Well, I graduated high school and then I got that job over at the foundry there, and well, I've been standing at the same machine now for 30 years. That machine has the handle on that machine is polished from this hand. And if that's you, I'm not trying to take away from what your happiness is. But for the rest of you, if you're not happy, it's time to change it. If you look at 2022 and were to step outside and look at yourself and go, did I become everything I could have? And the answer isn't a resounding yes. Where could you have improved? Yeah.
I like Jordan Peterson's component where he says, if you want to reflect on yourself, sit on the edge of your bed and ask yourself the areas that you could improve. And he's like, you'll get an answer, and being open and honest with yourself. I think that's very hard. But if you have a pen and paper and it's yourself, I think that is definitely something that can be done if you're willing to write it out and talk about it with yourself.
Absolutely. And not only with yourself, take it a step further. Find some accountability people who aren't going to be your rah-rah cheerleaders every day. Get a coach. Get a drill sergeant. Get somebody who's not going to take your namby-pamby excuses. Get somebody who has learned the skills of drilling down to values and criteria that can call you out on your feces and make you take a true, deep perspective. I need it too. I've lived enough life in survival mode that I have to be careful with myself. Flat out. I know that I can take my foot off the gas and coast for years because I'm so good at taking care of myself that I don't need to grow anymore. I constantly am going around going, well, I could do that job. Well, I could do that job. Well, I could work here. Well, I could do this. Well, yeah, dead people can push up daisies. But I know that I wasn't meant to climb back down the mountain and sit in the valley and pick strawberries. This is nothing against strawberry pickers. Stop typing. But I also know that I get bored easily. If I'm not challenged, I get bored, and a bored TJ is not a good TJ. This is why I love you guys so much. I love Triple T. Because part of it, I ain't gonna lie, sometimes Tuesday morning, I'm like, hey, what am I gonna talk about? I gotta deliver. And that's why I've done this 53 times in a row. And I've thanked God for some of you on here, you know who you are, for covering when life went, you can't be there. And I know that in the coming year, there are going to be some episodes where I'm not going to actually be available. And I want to make some changes. I want to improve this for you guys to give you as much value for your time that you are sharing with me as possible. So I'm looking to have more special guests on so that you can learn some stuff beyond what's in my gray matter. And I'm open to topics. If you guys have a topic that you've got questions on that you want and you don't want to throw it out last minute on the second hour, which we are coming up on real quickly, send it to me so I can do a little research and see what I can come up with to share, or maybe I can find a special guest to come on and add, and we can all learn. I am relentlessly curious, which allows me to enjoy victorious energy when I find out and accomplish what I was looking for. One thing we should all have in 23 is a lot more stuff to celebrate in victory. And I'm a little perturbed at myself, I'll be honest. because one of the side hustle videos that I shared with a number of my contacts on Instagram, I was like, that's a great idea. You should all do it. Well, I should have done it. It was designing a day planner to sell on all of the online sales. And so I have to either, and now I've tried finding the video. So if any of you find it, feel free to share it with me. I either have to put it out like a month ago so people can start buying it, or I have to put it out next week or next month as a 2024, or do one of those hybrids. I could start with, like June of 23 through December of 24. But I want all of you to get yourself a day planner where you've got one page per day and make it multi-use. On a daily rate at night, I want you to write down a minimum of 3 cool things you remember from the day, so that your brain can start being more focused on all of the good, cool things that are around you all the time. Yeah?
I started asking that to the kids that I see online. I'm like, what are 3 cool things that happened in the last week? And you'd be surprised as to how difficult it is for them to come up with 3 things. And it's a bit disheartening. So there's a lot of queuing, but it can be done to even help kids realize some of the cool things. And there are little ones that can just write out with it, but other ones it's really quite challenging for them.
Now, the sad part is, if you follow them up with the opposite, what are 3 bad things that you remember from last week?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you don't restrict them to 3 things, they'll give you 17 things. Can't come up with 3 good things, but they can tell you 17 bad things that they remember.
Yeah.
And that's why this exercise is so important, because the ones who have done it, their lives have changed. You start looking for and cognitively telling yourself, that was a good thing. That was a good thing. That was cool. That was cool. And the more you start focusing and paying attention and telling your mind, I need to record that, I need to record that, I need to record that, the less space you have for all the bad things. The second function of the year-long day planner, I want you to go to December 31st and write down who you're going to be on that day versus who you are today. What's changed? What have you learned? What have you accomplished? And I'm going to challenge you, along with myself, make at least a minimum of one audacious, hairy, scary, big change. One where you're like, ah! don't know if I can do it. And reverse engineer it. 9 months, 6 months, 3 months. If I'm going to make this, if I'm going to accomplish this big, hairy, scary change in my life, what do I have to have done by my 3rd month? Hey, Fran! Where do I have to be in June? How far along do I need to be in September? And then write them in on whatever day in those weeks or in those months, so that when you go back and you start filling in your cool stuff for the day and things of that nature daily, all of a sudden you get to March, and you're like, oh, am I on track? Huh? Then you get to June. Am I on track? Yes, I'm ahead of plan. Yay! September rolls around and you got 3 months left before the big, hairy, scary end of the new year, so that you can become somebody you didn't think was possible back in January 3rd of 2023. The other thing that I want you to do is I want you to share that big, hairy, scary change with as many people as possible. And then did you just say why? Yes, I'm learning lip reading.
That's impressive considering I have a hand over my face. What and why?
Yes.
Share it with people?
Share it with people.
Crazy.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. I wouldn't do that.
Accountability.
Yes, but if they don't belong in the kingdom, I wouldn't do that.
Sometimes you want the people that are not even allowed on the kingdom, because there are 2 ways to take their energy. They can throw logs at you and you can let them trip you up, or you can collect the logs and build a cabin.
You could.
A lot of times when people want to quit smoking, the problem is they tell 3 people, 3 of their closest friends, who wouldn't want to hurt their feelings when they see them spark up. I thought you were going to quit smoking. Oh my God, no, I gained like 5 pounds, and oh my, and the job, and oh, the stress, and their friends would be like, oh yeah, we understand. Okay. And they'll let them off the hook. Tell enough people, get that one person out there that you know is going to say those words. What are those words? You all just heard some words in your head when I said that, didn't you? Told you you couldn't do it. Knew you weren't strong. Told you that was too big of an idea. Knew you weren't going to be better than me. Knew you wouldn't be able to accomplish something that I've wanted to do my entire life. And the 9 million other reasons why they will try to tell you not to do it. whether it's to save you from changing or if it's to save them from being proved that somebody can do something they've wanted to do their entire life. And regardless of the reasons that they don't want you to do it, doesn't matter. Because you're doing it for you, not for their approval. Because again, what are they going to say when you cross the finish line? Yay, I knew you could do it all along. I'm your biggest fan. Oh my goodness. Sorry about the log. And that took us all the way through my first hour. Those of you that have watched and been here and supported me know that first hour I open my brains and throw them out on the table, and hopefully you find something that you want to pick up. Second hour is open platform, open mic. So if you guys have any topics or things that you would like help with,
I'll jump right in. So I've been thinking a lot, and I'd be interested to get everybody's perspective on the difference between excuses and explanations and strategies. And to kind of make it a little bit clearer about what I'm talking about is, and maybe there isn't a difference, maybe they're the same, but for the two examples that keep coming up in my mind are, let's pretend we're a knight back in the day. And I think there's a difference between a knight saying, I am not going to fight this fight, and a knight saying, you know what, I'm going to wear my armor. And wearing my armor doesn't mean I'm more likely to get stabbed. It just means I'm being responsible. Or the other example that comes to my mind is somebody who's going to drive and wears a seatbelt. Is there a difference between saying, I'm going to wear a seatbelt, and that's not because I'm going to make me wearing a seatbelt's not going to make an accident more likely, but I'm still going to do the drive because I know I need to drive somewhere important and I'm not going to shy away from that. I don't know if that makes any sense, but just kind of throwing that out. So once again, is there a difference between an excuse, which says I'm not going to fight, versus a strategy or an explanation that says, hey, I've looked into the better way to tackle this problem, and I'm just being, and that's why I'm digging into this. And I could be completely.
okay, in typical Triple T, I allow the participants to jump in first, and I will answer last.
I'll pop in. So for me, like, especially the way that you had just said it was, the difference is an intelligent decision for, like, I'm going to wear my seatbelt. Usually the odds are in my favor. I'm going to wear my armor. It helps protect me. Making an excuse, I think, would, at least to me, the difference between it in my head, the way that I make excuses, they're either whiny or they're ducking and hiding, versus, no, I genuinely did not have what I needed. So, I couldn't get this done today. Why? I was legitimately busy. Or, okay, no, you spent an hour wasting your time and procrastinating. I know the difference because I now know my habits well enough that will make sense. So in this case, that would be the difference of, I did the best I could, I wore my armor with the tools that I had. I had my seatbelt and my armor. I had the appropriate knowledge and the time that was available to me and the energy that was available to me. I think the difference is truly how you're judging it, and then also the tone that it's carrying.
I recognized a lot of those words. Well done. Very impressed. Who's next?
I would say probably Just to play off what Lenora said, being straight with yourself, not bullshitting yourself, you know, and that's really the difference, because you can make excuses and you can bullshit yourself, and you can convince yourself and other people of all kinds of things. What really is the reality, and really what's important to you. If it's important enough to you, you'll get it done. If it's not, you won't. Make an excuse.
Did you want to add anything, Fran? You don't have to.
I haven't really got anything to add to that. I'll probably find some other direction in later on.
It's okay. Here's my answer. 3 words: values and criteria. If it's an excuse, why is it important? Are you avoiding? Why are you avoiding? If it's avoidance, values and criteria. What are you avoiding? What are you lacking? What are you needing? Why is that important? When dealing with clients, I have to keep a very keen ear open to excuses. People will give you excuses all day long about why they can't do something or this or that or the other. And you have to discern between reality and excuses and take the response and boil it down and boil it down and boil it down to find out, because some excuses are actually legit responses. Some of them, however, are safety escapes, laziness, limiting beliefs, hardware versus software issue. And you have to, as an agent of change, you have to be able to go in and help people discern between the different levels and bring up, do they want to change? A lot of times they'll come to you going, I want this change, but excuse. And when you boil it down, they don't want the change. That's why they've invested so much time and energy to find any excuse possible.
Including damaging their physical body if necessary.
Yes, absolutely. The amount of work people will go through to avoid change can be, I know, one of the little voices back here that I had to deal with over years was that I would work harder at not working than getting the job done. I would take 30 minutes avoiding the job when the job was a 5-minute job. One of them was washing dishes. Oh my goodness gracious, when I was a young lad, I was so dumb that I would pick, I'm allowed to say that, I was dumb enough that when I got in trouble, which, happened every now and then, I would have the choice of mowing an acre and a half of lawn in town with a push mower in the summertime, in the blaring heat, or wash dishes. Guess which choice I made?
That's creative procrastination, though, which is good stuff
Well,
because
yeah,
you're getting other really good stuff done in the meantime that you would have put off if that had been your primary task.
had I washed the dishes, I could have used the riding lawnmower. But, live and learn. Yes, live and learn.
I would also say to anybody to notice your habits of procrastination. Mine happens to be baking. It's not a good one. Yeah, or I will stay in a room because I'm doing stuff in that room. So if you just start to really notice your habits of procrastination, you'll notice that you'll even hear all these excuses that they come up with.
Oh, I am a professional fiddle futzer. Fiddle futzing is a word. And I can be busy fiddle futzing all day long and get a whole ton of stuff done to avoid the thing that I'm supposed to get done. Especially when you gain a certain skill set or skill sets, especially in repairs and remodels and stuff. You can be busy anywhere, anytime, for the rest of time, till the end of time, and actually legitimately getting things accomplished, avoiding what you need to be to get doing. So, guilty. Did that help?
So much gold in all of that. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Welcome. That's why we do this. Who's next? Yeller? Yeller?
I do have a follow-up question if nobody else has anything they want to bring up.
Thank you.
You talked about hardware and software issues. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about I was thinking maybe there's two kinds of software issues. There are software issues that are needing to update existing software. And then there are software issues that are about installing new software. And so one, how can we tell the difference of which one it is? And two, are there different strategies for both, or are they kind of the same strategies?
We're in the second hour. Who wants to answer first?
Say that once more, Holly, about updating software. Which one are you trying to figure out which ones need to go before other ones can be installed?
So when we're talking about, changes that we can make in our lives, we have hardware issues like your height is not something you're going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got software issues. But I'm thinking there are two kinds of software issues. There's the software issues where we're running an old existing program that maybe it's, and I know I'm going really heavy on the metaphors rather than the realities, but it's a program that we're already running. We've already learned this skill, but maybe we're doing something in the program wrong. Maybe some kind of virus has gotten involved and we need to run a clearing program, quarantine it, delete it. And then sometimes we can learn this skill, but it's completely new. We've never even installed the first version of the software, and we need to figure out how to install the very first version of this software. And how do you recognize when it's an old software that needs to be updated, needs to be cleaned, versus new software that needs to be installed? And then once you realize it, what are there different strategies for installing new software versus cleaning old software, or are they the same strategies? If that makes sense.
I love this question. I think it's so good. There's so much in there. my first instinct would be to look at the one that you're wanting and then look at if there is something that needs to go or that needs to be updated. And it can't necessarily, like, I love that it's so broad, but I'm trying to chunk it down a little bit to something specific. That's my first instinct.
If you want an example, I'll give a very concrete example.
Okay.
So this was, I just was going with my mom to the gas station one day, and I had gone for an entire year where every time I'd clean my windows, I was leaving streaks behind and I didn't know why. And I thought it was just, I had been doing it for years. I thought it was a program that I was running that I had already learned. And it turned out there were some little skill sets that she knew. She cleaned my windshield and I looked at it and I just said, there's no streaks. What happened? And there was just a technique that I didn't realize I was missing a technique, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And once I learned it, it was the tiniest little tweak and all of a sudden everything changed. And here I thought it was just, I'm not taking enough time to do it. I'm not paying enough attention. I'm too lazy. I don't do it often enough. All of these, there's something wrong with my existing software. And all it was that I needed to install a new technique, a new skill set, a new piece of knowledge needed to go in my mind for me to be able to change.
I usually look at it, especially when it's smart technology, it does its best to be smart. And sometimes it's a little too obnoxious. And I will sit there and go, okay, I'm not a stupid person. Other people have figured this out. What am I missing? And I will then look at what they're doing to figure out to get it to where I need it to be. So that way I can understand it better, but I will look outside going, okay, I'm missing something. What am I missing? What are other people doing? That's the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned specifically about the time when you were with your mom, which was a fun time.
I've got a question, Holly. Why is it important to distinguish between the new, unused skill set and the one that needs updating?
If the strategy is the same for both, it isn't important to, I think the strategy must be different, because I think sometimes I spend so much time trying to solve a problem by regressing myself, trying to find what block I need to clear. And all I really need to do is spend 5 minutes on YouTube searching and just find a new strategy. But then sometimes I think I'm just trying to find a new strategy, and it really is that there's just some simple block that I need to regress myself and clear. So, maybe you just try both and see, maybe experiment and see what works. I don't know.
Well, that's a good strategy. Dr. Google has got a lot of answers out there, if you're discerning.
Another question I would ask myself would be, is it important? Or how important is this? Because I can get lost in questions and questions. And then sometimes it's like, you know what? Do I need this answered? Or is this just getting out of lost in the weeds and come back?
This is really helping clarify things for me. I think I'm realizing I beat myself up a lot when I can't find the answers immediately. And you're right. Sometimes you just don't need the answers. It doesn't mean you should be beating yourself up.
It's a result of being overly intelligent. You're looking for something that's way harder than other things.
The other thing I would recommend, always embrace relentless curiosity.
How many different ways are there of achieving the end result? You could do it that way, or you could do it that way, or another way, or invent something new.
Who's the expert? The person who's only a half a step ahead of you. And if you're constantly looking and embracing the possibility that there's a better way, an easier way, somebody's done this before, somebody did this different, or recognizing that you don't have to know all the answers here. You simply have to embrace the fact that the answers are out there and become really good at finding and researching the answers. I had an episode regarding this yesterday. Looked out in the road in front of the house, and there's a pickup, hood up, and not far enough off the road. We've got a 2-lane, very busy highway. And I'm like, ooh, no bueno. So being the person that I am, I went out there, and the guy's like, all of a sudden I got this thing on the display, shut off the car, put in park. And so he was losing power and got it. That's as far as he got, put it in park, and it wouldn't start, wouldn't come out of park. He couldn't push it any farther. And so we just started asking, going through all the stuff that we knew. I grabbed my code reader and multimeter, and we're checking everything. And he's on, while I'm getting parts, he's on his phone looking up. And it turns out that model year of that particular vehicle had a design flaw on the passenger kick panel. For anybody that owns a 2014 Ford F-150, on the kick panel of the passenger side, there was a connector plug, a gray connector plug. This is how common it is that it showed up in this feed, a gray connector plug, that if that area gets kicked or bumped enough, it will come loose. He has a young boy who has enough energy to operate a small city, who apparently had kicked that area a couple of times. So he pulled the cover plate off, the guy did, and there's the connector just hanging there. Plugged it back in, vroom, whoop, down the road he goes. Now, did either one of us have to be engineers or certified repair techs in a Ford garage to be able to repair that thing? No. You have to be able to realize that somewhere out there is an answer. Do I consider myself a Ford repair tech master now? No. Just like with all of the appliances that I've repaired over the years of taking care of properties, and people are like, oh, you can fix anything. I'm like, yeah, because I know how to research answers. I've got access to the internet. I've got access to other people's knowledge. And our access to knowledge base is so much farther, so much more expansive than it ever was. Those of us that are old enough to remember going to the library and using the Dewey Decimal System with library cards, and then finding the book and realizing that somebody checked it out and it was due back 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago or 2 years ago, but that's where the answer was, as far as we know. And we didn't have the ability to cross-reference 19 other locations where that bit of information could be. Realize how easy we have it now, and yet people think that we are living in tough times. Just like the story that I read. If you were born in 1900, what have they gone through? What have they seen? I sat in complete awe one time with my grandfather, who was 94 at the time, and realized that he lived on the same farm for 92 of his years. Or no, not 92. He moved off the farm at 87. So he had lived on the same farm, I believe, for 85 years. And on that farm, it still had an outhouse, had a house that was built in the 30s that he built. He had seen electricity come to the farm, been milking cattle before electricity, then electricity came. And then he got to see radio show up, and then he got to see television show up. He got to see steam engines, then he got to see gas-powered engines, and tractors and cars, cell phones, all of that stuff in his one lifetime. How much change and adaptation did he get to go through? It would be minimalistic thinking for me to believe that I can't go through change after watching my grandfather. And one of the things that he always said, I love people. Always did. He never met somebody. He constantly met friends that he hadn't met before. Does that make sense?
I feel like when you look at it that way, he adapted to change that was so external. And then I feel like, yeah, there's stuff that's changed externally, but like not that big of a deal. But like looking back on his, that seems incredible to have experienced that, to not have electricity and then to go to electricity, to
Yeah.
not, so many things. Oh my goodness.
To have a telephone in your house.
Yeah.
In your house. It was a party line. I remember those. You could quietly pick up and catch your neighbors chit-chatting until you got caught. They let you know too. I remember completely blowing my father's mind into microparticles the first time that I talked to him for a half an hour on a cell phone back when it was $3 a minute to talk on the cell phone. But luckily I worked for the company and had unlimited minutes to show people how clear the conversations could be. And so I got on the phone, called Pops, put my boss on the phone, which wasn't unusual, but to chit chat for a couple of seconds so that my dad knew that I was at work. Hopped in my car, drove 20 minutes to get home. Hopped out of the car, carrying my bag phone, a few purses that guys would carry back in the 80s, the 90s. Opened up the door, there's my pops sitting on the phone with a long cord way off to the phone in the center of the house. Back to the door, and I said, all right, I guess we can hang up. I'm home now. And I'll never forget his face. He turned around and went, what? Yeah. How's it sound? He talked about that for 3 months. Best advertising I've ever done. I sold more phones off of Pops in those 3 months. And now 3-year-olds have a cell phone.
Just because, and then also we can talk with each other face to face around the country. Think how much the overseas cost of this call would be back in the day.
Around the world. I mean, it's
Around the world, yes.
Yeah.
Right now, for those of you that don't know these people, go ahead and each one of you one at a time. I'm in Dallas, Texas area right now. Who's next? Holly, where are you calling from?
Not too far away, Salt Lake City, Utah.
And Lenora?
I am in central Pennsylvania.
And Mo?
I'm in Edmonton, Canada, Alberta.
And Fran?
Western Australia, way down under.
And Guada probably can't jump on, but she's in San Francisco.
I'm gonna pop on really quick. The lovely Aaron is actually Zooming. He's watching on YouTube, and he messaged me earlier, and he had me send something to Holly, and then I said, "Do you want me to read it out loud?" So he actually said this, going back to Holly's question about the seatbelt and the armor, and he said some people avoid things in ways that don't look like avoidance. One way is to say just one more lesson / training / purchase, and I'll be good enough / ready. And each time they do, they get a little dopamine hit and think, look at me, I'm doing it, I feel good. But they're just rewarding the procrastination. There is nothing wrong with putting on a seatbelt as long as you actually drive the car. Smiley face. Aaron is in New Zealand, if I didn't say that.
Spot on.
Mm-hmm.
There are the overeducated people that can't take the first step. They always think they have to learn a little bit more, one more class, one more lesson, one more whatever. And then there are the people that aim, or was it draw, shoot, aim, draw, fire, aim. They will get an idea and go out and they're doing it. Are they doing it to the best of their ability? No. But they're doing it. And they will learn along the way. Some people only have to see the first 2 steps and understand, yeah, there's probably 10 steps out there, but there's the first 2. Other people have to know there's 10 steps. I have to do them in these order, and I can't stop and I can't start until I figure out, is there possibly 12 steps? I mean, there might be. I mean, but what if there's 14 steps? I mean, they told me there's 10, but there could be 14. And I can't start until I know all 14 or 15 or 23 steps.
And that's why it's so important to just do it, even if you aren't sure you're going to be any good at it and you're going to really suck at it to start off with. It's okay. The doing it will give you so much more than waiting for those lessons, even if you don't do it brilliantly to start off with. And if you look back over the tunnel of time and review your work back then and think, oh my goodness, that was so awful, that's just a sign of look how far you've come. And yay. And that was because you did it.
Some of the most amazing, beautiful structures in the world started out with no blueprints. They started out with an idea and took decades to finish. Some of them, the person who started out with the vision didn't even live to see the end product. With the stuff that we're building within ourselves for this year, for 24, your vision for what December 31st, 2024 could be, should be, would be, might be, could be one of those where you don't need the blueprint. You don't need to know all 17 steps. Get on the path, get going. You might be surprised and find out it's 4 steps and you're done in June. You're like, whoa! That big, hairy, scary, oh my goodness gracious idea thingy, now what do I do? Pick another one. I'm lucky enough. The people that I can see right now, and those of you that are watching the recording, I am blessed, honored, and all the above to know each of you personally. Those of you who are watching recordings, obviously, I would love to know you. Please reach out and let me know you. But I know enough about each one of you on this call. I know that you guys have gone out and done some stuff and accomplished stuff and grown. And each of you have skill sets that I don't. And some of you take it so lackadaisically, yeah, but that's what I do.
And all this stuff reaches over into our personal lives as well. And, how much you dare to meet new people or tell somebody that you like them or just start up a conversation or see somebody looking either alone or angry and plucking up the courage to actually go over and make their day. We shy away from it so much. When, look how much we could transform our lives if we just went and did it.
Maybe for some of us, the big, hairy, scary could be simply, how many strangers can I walk up to and talk to in 24?
I'll do you one better than that, TJ. How about what would have to occur that I can make them have a better day just by encountering me than they had before?
Yeah. Step 2. And you can make excuses. Well, it's easy for you. It wasn't always. I had some amazing friends who told me amazing things about myself that gave me a pretty good complex about talking to people. It took me a while to get over it because, friends are nice like that.
So what did you learn from that, TJ?
What?
What did you learn from that, TJ? What useful things came out of that?
That's how I can help other people when they say, well, so-and-so said this about me. I'm like, yeah. And? the words don't hold any meaning. It's the label and energy you attach to the words that give it its structure and strength. The fact that my business is TSWB, which stands for Tall, Skinny, White Boy, is kind of a slap in the face to my childhood friends. Because they gave me a hard time about being this tall, lanky boy with big lips. I was Scarecrow, I was Toothpick, I was Bones, I was all of the above. And now what is my business? Tall, skinny white boy. You know why? Because I went way beyond that. I love showing up at class reunions. You know why? Because most of them will admit that they figured I would be living in the same small town, working in the same mechanic shop, married a couple of times, popped out a couple of kids. And now they've seen enough of me where they're no longer surprised. But I tell you what, those first couple of class reunions, there was a whole lot of, you did what? You went where? You lived where? You're doing what now?
Talk about taking logs and building a cabin.
Whee! Yeah. So I want to challenge you guys. How many friends and family can you spin on their heads by December 31st of 2023, where they're going, you did what? You're doing what now? You learned what? Well, what made you get into that? Because I wanted to. Because I could. What made you decide to stay the same? And not in a disrespectful way. For some people, going to the buffet and having a cheese sandwich is all they want. Nothing wrong with a cheese sandwich. But if you ate the cheese sandwich every single day of your life that you went to the buffet, I want a little bit more, because I found out over there is the dessert island, and over there is seafood, and over there is soup and salads, and they're like, oh, you have that? Yeah, I might not like the salad. I've heard about that seafood. That cheesecake, could be, I don't know. I'm just going to stand here with my cheese sandwich. All right. I'm going to go load up my plate. A couple of times. You know why? Because in this world, there is more available in that buffet than you can ever consume in 10 lifetimes. I'll say it again. In this world, there is more available to you on that buffet than you can ever consume as ferociously as possible in 10 lifetimes. Load your plate up. Go for the big, hairy, scary. Ask for help. Search for answers. Grow. Move. Change. Find a new job. Start a new profession. Learn how to play guitar. Learn a new language. Talk to strangers. Change people's lives. Put a dent in the universe. Make your past selves completely shocked and impressed.
So tell me, how do you approach strangers when you're brightening their day without totally freaking them out or creeping them out?
Any way possible.
Tell
Any
me
way
more.
possible. One of my favorites is compliments that they're not expecting. Another is Chinese facial reading. I have such a blast with that. But the number one is questions and unexpected compliments. And it may sound daunting, but it's not really that hard. You can study anybody and find something to compliment them on. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And I've rarely given somebody a heartfelt compliment and had them go, "That's a crock." Usually I'm responded with a great smile and a thank you. And I don't even do it for that. I do it because the more I do it, the easier it gets, and it's a lot of fun.
And what happens to your body and your mind and your mood when you do it and you get a good response?
The best answer to that, everybody and anybody that witnesses it gets the good part of the situation. Anybody and everybody benefits that sees it. That's why I do the victory pose in public, anywhere, anytime, all the time. Because I don't have to rely on other people telling me. I've witnessed it so many times that anybody that sees it benefits from it.
Fran, I do it a lot at the grocery store when you're checking out, or, oh, hey, how's your day going? And just saying, hey, how's your day going? Or greeting them like a friend, it really changes them instantly. Or even like, oh, how much longer left on your shift? What fun things are you going to do later? It really makes a difference. And people know when they go to the store with me that I'm going to be chatting at the cashier, and I don't go up on my earbuds or with a phone. And the one time that I did, I had a family emergency and somebody's checking me out, and she's like, "Oh, are you baking?" And I'm like, I couldn't process it. And I literally had to put this person on mute going, I'm really sorry. I'm in the middle of a family emergency. Yes, I'm baking at some point. Thank you so much for your kindness. And like acknowledging them, because there's already a disconnect and they're just doing their job. And the fact that you can stop and greet them and talk with them, they're like, a human. Like they just get so excited by it.
Yeah,
I'm
especially
gonna
in
jump in.
a job. That's really a beautiful gift you bring them. Thank you.
Say, I don't have the the skills or the strategies as well as some of the people on here that I've seen. They do such a good job, but this is reminding me, I completely forgotten about this dream that I had several years ago. This is more of a motivation than a strategy thing. I had a dream that I was in kind of like can't think of a better word for it. It wasn't heaven's probably not the typical word for it, but it was planning session, whatever. And I was with my best friend up in heaven and we were getting so excited. And basically in this dream, I had two scenarios. The first time we both came down, we both forgot. And we had the chance that we finally met each other. And it wasn't me meeting some stranger and trying to make awkward small talk. It was me being reunited with my best friend. And it was the most exciting moment ever because those 5 years it took us to reconnect, it was, oh, thank goodness we finally got to meet each other. And then for some reason in the dream, I replayed that scenario and I went down and I was so caught up in the world that I didn't recognize her. And I was so caught up in my own head that I just passed her by and didn't say hi. And it really hit this idea that like I could have missed out on my best friend. This wasn't some random person. This is somebody I already knew. This was somebody I was meant to run into in my life at that point. How dare I walk by when this is the person I wanted to meet more than anybody in the world? I just don't remember it.
Wow, what a fabulous dream. And what a wonderful wake-up call reminder.
So here's my question. Now that you've relived and reaffirmed that, how many best friends are out there waiting for you to introduce yourself through a compliment, through a whatever? One of the guys at my wedding, Tina hates it when how'd you guys meet? Through Craigslist. Yeah. And she hates it when I say that because of the dating app that used to be on there, but it was simply because I wanted a stereo for my car. Found one on Craigslist. Showed up, and we talked for about an hour and a half. I could have just said, that stereo? Yep. Here's my money. And we still talk all the time. Monday, while everybody was being so happy at the grocery store, I was looking for rye bread for my wife. And a guy holding a tablet looks at me and goes, "Help you find something?" And me being the shy person that I am, 10 minutes later, we're texting each other now. Because he and his wife and his barely 1-year-old child just moved here from Pennsylvania. And he's a rep for this new line of bread that's being brought to Texas.
And I think you have a wedding anniversary coming up shortly, haven't you, TJ?
In 20 days. Yes, because I was lucky enough to recognize a download from up above that 1, 2, 3, 2, 1 would be a great day to get married because I would remember 1, 2, 3. I learned how to count like that when I was a young boy. Back when I didn't even know how to count. And then I couldn't count past 10. And 100 felt like, oh, I would never figure that out. And then addition, adding numbers together, and then multiplying numbers. And then pretty soon there would be things like, I don't know, software, where you'd put numbers and information into grids and yeah. And we evolve and move and grow and learn and all the above. And it takes us all the way to the top of the hour, even a minute past, which means Triple T, number 53, on day number 3 of 2023 is at a close. We've made one more event in history shared with all of you live and on the recording, and those of you watching the recording later on. Sometimes it's humbling. So thank you. Without you, I would just be yakking away at a microphone.
We appreciate you in Triple T, TJ. So thank you for doing it.
I'm at a loss for words. There, that's a recording. Thank you. I hope you guys get something from it. And I'm just going to let it go there. Love you all. See you in 7.